The Revised Penal Code, Title 9, Crimes Against Personal Liberty and Security. Chapter 1, Crimes Against Liberty. Section 1, Illegal Detention. Article 267, Kidnapping and Serious Illegal Detention. Any private individual who shall kidnap or detain another, or in any other manner deprive him or of his liberty, shall suffer the penalty of reclusion perpetua to death. 1. If the kidnapping or detention shall have instead more than 3 days. 2. If it shall have been committed simulating public authority. 3. If any serious physical injuries shall have been inflicted upon the person kidnapped or detained, or if threats to kill him shall have been made. 4. If the person kidnapped or detained shall be a minor, except when the accused is any of the parents, female, on a public officer. The penalty shall be death where the kidnapping or detention was committed for the purpose of extorting ransom from the victim or any other person, even if none of the circumstances above mentioned were present in the commission of the offense. When the victim is killed or dies as a consequence of the detention, or is raped, or is subjected to torture, or dehumanizing acts, the maximum penalty shall be imposed. Article 268, Slight Illegal Detention. The penalty of reclusion temporal shall be imposed upon any private individual who shall commit the crime described in the next preceding article without the attendance of any of the circumstances enumerated therein. The same penalty shall be incurred by anyone who shall furnish the place for the perpetration of the crime. If the offender shall voluntarily release the person so kidnapped or detained within 3 days from the commencement of the detention without having attained the purpose intended, and before the institution of criminal proceedings against him, the penalty shall be prison mayor in its minimum and median periods, and a fine not exceeding 100,000 pesos. Article 269, Unlawful Arrest. The penalty of arresto mayor and a fine not exceeding 100,000 pesos shall be imposed upon any person who, in any case other than those authorized by law or without reasonable ground therefore, shall arrest or detain another for the purpose of delivering him to the proper authorities. Section 2, Kidnapping of Minors. Article 270, Kidnapping and failure to return a minor. The penalty of reclusion perpetua shall be imposed upon any person who, being entrusted with the custody of a minor person, shall deliberately fail to restore the latter to his parents or guardians. Article 271, Inducing a minor to abandon his home. The penalty of prison correctional and a fine not exceeding 100,000 pesos shall be imposed upon anyone who shall induce a minor to abandon the home of his parents or guardians or the person entrusted with his custody. If the person committing any of the crimes covered by 2 preceding articles shall be the father or mother of the minor, the penalty shall be arresto mayor and a fine not exceeding 50,000 pesos or both. Section 3, Slavery and Servitude. Article 272, Slavery. The penalty of prison mayor and a fine not exceeding 10,000 pesos shall be imposed upon anyone who shall purchase, sell, kidnap, or detain a human being for the purpose of enslaving him. If the crime be committed for the purpose of assigning the offended party to some immoral traffic, the penalty shall be imposed in its maximum period. Article 273, Exploitation of Child Labor. The penalty of prison correctional in its minimum in medium periods, and a fine not exceeding 500 pesos shall be imposed upon anyone who, under the pretext of reimbursing himself of a debt incurred by an ascendant, guardian, or person entrusted with the custody of a minor, shall, against the latter's will, retain him in his service. Article 274. Services rendered under compulsion, compulsion in payment of debt. The penalty of arresto mayor in its maximum period to prison correctional in its minimum period shall be imposed upon any person who, in order to require or enforce the payment of a debt, shall compel the debtor to work for him against his will as household servant or farm laborer. Chapter 2. Crimes Against Security. Section 1. Abandonment of helpless persons and exploitation of minors. Article 275. Abandonment of person in danger and abandonment of one's own victim. The penalty of arresto mayor shall be imposed upon 1. Anyone who shall fail to render assistance to any person who shall find in an uninhabited place, wounded, or in danger of dying, when he can render such assistance without detriment to himself, unless such omission shall constitute a more serious offense. 2. Anyone who shall fail to help or render assistance to another whom he has accidentally wounded or injured. 3. Anyone who, having found an abandoned child under 7 years of age, shall fail to deliver said child to the authorities or to his family, or shall fail to take him to a safe place. Article 276. Abandoning a minor. The penalty of arresto mayor and a fine not exceeding 100,000 pesos shall be imposed upon anyone who shall abandon a child under 7 years of age, the custody of which is incumbent upon him. When the death of the minor shall result from such abandonment, the culprit shall be punished by prison correctional in its medium and maximum periods, but if the life of the minor shall have been in danger only, the penalty shall be prison correctional in its minimum and medium periods. The provisions contained in the two preceding paragraphs shall not prevent the imposition of the penalty provided for the act committed when the same shall constitute a more serious offense. Article 277. Abandonment of minor by person entrusted with his custody in deference of parents. The penalty of arresto mayor and a fine not exceeding 100,000 pesos shall be imposed upon anyone who, having charge of the rearing or education of a minor, shall deliver said minor to a public institution or other persons without the consent of one who entrusted such child to his care, or in the absence of the latter, without consent of the proper authorities. The same penalty shall be imposed upon the parents who shall neglect their children by not giving them the education which their station in life requires and financial conditions permit. Article 278. Exploitation of minors. The penalty of prison correctional in its minimum and medium periods and a fine not exceeding 100,000 pesos shall be imposed upon 1. Any person who shall cause any boy or girl under 16 years of age to perform any dangerous feat of balancing, physical strength, or consortion. 2. Any person who, being an acrobat, gymnast, rope walker, diver, wild animal tamer, or circus manager, or engaged in a similar calling, shall employ in exhibition of these kinds children under 16 years of age who are not his children or descendant. 3. Any person engaged in the calling, in any of the calling enumerated in the next preceding paragraph, who shall employ any descendant of his under 12 years of age in such dangerous exhibition. 4. Any ascendant, guardian, teacher, or person entrusted in any capacity with the care of a child under 16 years of age who shall deliver such child gratuitously to any person following any of the callings enumerated in paragraph 2 hereof, or to any habitual vagrant or beggar. If the delivery shall have been made in consideration of any price, compensation, or promise, the penalty shall, in every case, be imposed in its maximum period. In either case, the guardian or curator convicted shall be shall also be removed from office as guardian or curator, and in the case of the parents of the child, they may be deprived temporarily or perpetually in the discretion of the court and their parental authority. 5. Any person who shall induce any child under 16 years of age to abandon the home of its ascendants, guardians, curators, or teacher to follow any person engaged in any of the callings mentioned in paragraph 2 hereof, or to accompany any habitual vagrant or beggar. Article 279. Additional penalties for other offenses. The imposition of the penalties in the preceding articles shall not prevent the imposition upon the same person of the penalty provided for any other felonies defined and punished by this code.